There are about 5 or 6 times a year I go to the NYU library and I spend a couple days. Just browsing is too mild a term, but wandering around, going through millions of journals in the most sort of serendipitous way I can, just to kind of see what's out there and see if I can stumble on something. So
without a clear goal or direction, just to explore.
No goal whatsoever. So there's that I do as a regular basis, and then I do a fair amount of speaking, and I always try and have conversations with people well outside my world. So today, I gave a talk this morning in Philadelphia, and I was talking to a guy. One of the guys there runs a medical devices company, very, very small one. And so I started talking to him about, because I've always had this idea in my head that it would be really, really fun to compare the way dogs are treated with the way humans are treated, because they're not that dissimilar as problems for medical science. But the systems that surround doggy healthcare and human healthcare are profoundly different, right? So, the same devices are used in various, hip implants, or they're not the same, but analogous devices. Only you do a complex knee surgery on your dog, it's $7,000, and you do it on a human being, it's $100. Now, is a human really 15 times more complex than a dog when it comes to? No. So there's something. But anyway, I sort of had this vague thought, and then I met this guy, and so I started asking about this, and he sort of started riffing on it and gave me his card. Now that's sort of how it works. You know what I mean? Like, you take advantage of a little thought you had in your head, and when you meet someone by accident who happens to have specialized knowledge, you make sure you get his card. So that's sort of the.
It's fascinating to think about it being so nonlinear. Right?
It's different from. Although I suspect a lot of academic work is. I think that it's not the nonlinearity and the serendipity of it is what makes it fun. And if it's too organized, it can fall flat on the page. I think my books to feel like there is a random element in my books. I mean, they're supposed to be kind of like these kind of accidental wanderings through the world. There's not supposed to be a grand plan. And if there did, I think it would feel a little less. The books would lose some of their life.
Mm-hmm. So I guess to spin off of that, then one of the other things that's always interesting is you've done 5 books now. What has changed about the way that you think about the world, and particularly since this is a Wharton conversation about the world of work and leadership in organizations?
I guess I have more respect for the diversity of. I realize now that an effective leader or manager can come in a virtually infinite number of forms. I have way more respect for the kind of heterogeneity of excellence. And took a long time because it's so tempting to try and paint a very specific picture of what you think effective, say, leadership is, or what an effective organization looks like. And now I've sort of, the older I get and the more I sort of see, I realize, no, they have some high performers of one sort or another have certain things in common, but they're almost more distinguished by what they don't have in common than what they do. And it's understanding fit, to me, is a much more important issue than defining the characteristics of excellence. Is understanding the combination of individual and organization, and what and why at different points in your life cycle you might want a very, very different kind of person. It's funny how the purest example of this is in sports, where the notion of fit between the athletes that you have and the coach that you hire is only occasionally considered in, and you'll always read that they'll say, they brought in such and such a coach whose plotting style is ill-suited to the athletes that he has. And then you wonder, so then why did they bring in a coach?
Never even thought about it.
Why do a plotting style if no one on your team wants to play the plotting style? So there is this kind of, it's interesting how hard that notion is to, maybe it's because it renders the task of defining what you want a lot more complicated, and we'd rather not deal with that, I suppose.
I think that's one of the fundamental contributions that you've made to the world is to take people who have very simple ideas and get them to complicate them and question them and turn them upside down.
Yeah.
To close on this one, what idea have you put out into the world that you think has been most misunderstood that you would like to set the record straight on?
Well, there's quite a lot. I get misunderstood a fair amount. That's an interesting thought. I am sometimes accused. The thing that is said about my work that irritates me the most is that I cherry pick, and I don't think I do at all. Or at least I think I do what everyone does when they construct an argument, which is we require those who construct arguments to do a reasonable survey of the literature and choose that evidence that is most relevant to their argument. Now, that doesn't mean that is in agreement with their argument, but rather that it's relevant to their argument. You have to sift. And I think I sift like anyone else sifts. But for some reason, that's become a kind of cliche about my work that I kind of simply zero in on things that accord with my preconceptions. But I don't think I do at all. I think I try to be pretty good about. So there's that. And then people have simplified the 10,000 hours thing ridiculously. I've never said that 10,000 hours was sufficient to achieve mastery, and people have caricatured that claim over and over again to my distress.
Yeah, I think certainly for me it's an interesting example that challenges us to think differently about expertise. And I think part of what's so exciting about David and Goliath is it shows just how clearly you are willing to say, look, there's one side of an argument, but wait, there is another side of an argument. And so I think that's a great case for saying, look, the world is a lot messier than we think it is.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Adam.